The blade hummed above her head, a low, vibrating tone that seemed to reach to the broadcast feed and settle in the chest of every viewer. Leora Kane stood alone on the raised obsidian platform at the center of the Hall of Final Judgment. Her wrists were bound, her posture straight, her chin lifted in defiance. Around her, tiered balconies of alien dignitaries and imperial citizens watched in rapt silence. The chamber's curved bronze-stone walls caught the light of suspended flame orbs, casting an amber glow across the gathering. High Regent Kael'thur sat enthroned on an elevated dais, cloaked in a cascade of black silk threads that shimmered faintly. His voice rolled out through the hall, carried by the Empire's preferred oratory modulation, deep, resonant, and theatrical. The human stands guilty of subverting the will of the Varithian people. By aiding insurgents, she spat upon the Empire's grace. For this insult, the penalty is death. No murmurs followed. The hall was trained to obey silence. In the gallery reserved for diplomatic observers, Commander Elias Voss kept his expression still. To the casual glance, he could have been another neutral envoy fulfilling a distasteful obligation. In reality, every detail of the scene, the guard placements, the timing of the regent's words, the exact rotation of the security drones, burned into his memory with precision. The girl didn't look for him. She knew better. But as the executioner, a tall Varithian clad in silver-scaled armor, raised the blade in both hands, her eyes shifted just once toward the gallery. He had 47 minutes. The blade descended in a clean arc. The hum cut to silence. The feed stayed locked on her body for exactly 3 breaths before fading to the imperial crest, a spiked circle wreathed in flames. Across the galaxy, trillions had watched. A Varithian aide stepped forward in the gallery. "You will remain seated until the procession concludes," she instructed with cold formality. Elias gave a courteous nod. Of course. He waited, not because the aide ordered it, but because leaving now would disrupt his count. The regent liked to savor his moments of dominance, and Elias needed the full picture. Below, Kael'thur rose, gesturing in grand arcs to the cameras that continued to stream his closing remarks. "Let all see the fate of those who challenge us. Let this day remind the Concord that mercy is a luxury we do not afford." Polished words meant for fear. Elias stored them without reaction. The moment the regent stepped behind the curtain of shadowed pillars, Elias stood, smoothed the front of his dark diplomatic coat, and walked out. His boots clicked once for every 2 heartbeats. The hall's corridors were cavernous, built to make those passing through feel diminished. Elias walked them without hurry, hands at his sides, gaze forward. 2 guards and mirrored visors tracked him but didn't move. Humans were not considered a threat here. At the far end, sunlight spilled through a vertical fracture in the wall, the only natural light in the building. Elias stepped into it briefly, as though appreciating the view of Varith Prime's distant ocean. In truth, the move put him under a blind spot in the surveillance grid. A soft chime in his left ear confirmed the channel was secure. "Voss here," he said under his breath. The reply came crisp, a woman's voice carrying the clipped cadence of military discipline. "Asset confirmed?" "Confirmed." His tone didn't change. Broadcast began at 1,400 hours. Termination complete at 1403. Initiating response window. Understood. Synchronizing timers. The channel cut. Elias stepped out of light, letting the shadow swallow him again. The building's main exit opened onto the Imperial Plaza, a broad, white stone expanse bordered by statues of past regents, all cast in their prime, and all clutching the ceremonial sword. Varithian citizens milled there, some celebratory, others wary of being seen otherwise. A news drone hovered low, its lens sweeping the crowd for emotion shots. Elias passed beneath it without breaking stride, the diplomatic badge on his chest enough to make it veer away. A boy, Varithian, with translucent amber skin and wide black eyes, stared up at him. No malice, just curiosity. Elias gave him the faintest nod and kept walking. The car waiting for him was unremarkable, a standard diplomatic transport with tinted windows. The driver, another human, didn't speak. The door closed, sealing out the plaza's noise. Elias exhaled once. Not relief, calibration. "Where are we on staging?" he asked. The driver kept his eyes forward. "Teams in position. Comms blackout on all Imperial tactical channels. Begins in 20. You'll have your corridors. Make it 15. The driver glanced at him briefly. "That moves our detonation window forward by 2 minutes. "Then we move forward by 2 minutes," Elias said evenly. "The Regent's already shifted his schedule once today. I won't give him another opportunity." Silence settled. The city passed outside, gleaming spires of obsidian and crystal. Aerial platforms humming with traffic. In the distance, the palace dome caught the afternoon light like a jewel. Elias's watch vibrated once. He didn't need to look. It meant the secondary team was in motion. He closed his eyes briefly, and for a moment the memory of Leora's last look surfaced again. Not pleading, not afraid, just acknowledgement. She had known, even then, what he would do. When he opened his eyes, the softness was gone. "Route to the Ascendancy Hall," he ordered. The driver turned them toward the heart of the city. In the reflection of the window, Elias Voss looked every inch to calm, collected envoy. Pressed uniform, measured breathing, no trace of emotion. But beneath the surface, the clock was running, and with every second, the Varithian Empire's remaining minutes ticked away. 44 to go. The Ascendancy Hall rose ahead like a fortress pretending to be art. All sweeping black spires and seamless crystal faces. Edges so sharp they caught the sun in blinding flashes. The diplomatic transport slid to a halt beneath its hovering gates. Elias Voss stepped out without hesitation, the warm air smelling faintly of ozone and the floral tang of Varithian pollen drifting from the palace gardens. 2 guards in polished chest plates scanned him with ceremonial spears tipped in plasma emitters. The badges on his coat flickered, recognized by the scanners. No words were exchanged. His clearance opened the gates. Inside, the air was cooler, heavy with the scent of the resin incense the Varithians favored. The vast corridor ahead was lined with colossal statues of former regents, each carved in a stance of silent judgment. Elias didn't slow. His voice was low when he spoke, almost lost in the echo. "Status." The reply came from a bead in his ear. Commander Larchin, his second in command. Her voice was sharp, unembellished. "First cell is in the comms relay hub. Second cell has eyes on the planetary defense AI. Third is shadowing your position. Operational windows? 15 minutes until blackout. All entry points are mapped. Palace guard rotations are predictable." He passed under an archway into a smaller chamber, its walls hung with silken banners depicting the Empire's conquests. His steps slowed fractionally, allowing him to scan the concealed cameras embedded in the ornamental trim. He knew Chin was watching through the uplink. "Confirm the final asset," he said. There was a pause. "We have it." Elias's jaw flexed once. "Then we move." The palace's underlevels were not meant for dignitaries. Elias's clearance allowed him down a narrow stair that spiraled into shadow. At the base, he found a door disguised as a storage hatch. The latch clicked when he pressed his palm to the reader. Inside, 3 humans waited in unmarked combat blacks. They were lean, compact, the kind of people who could disappear in any crowd and leave no trace they'd been there. A woman with cropped black hair looked up from her pack. "Sir, Ron," Elias acknowledged. He glanced over their loadouts. Compact carbines, disruption charges, cutting tools, enough EMP grenades to blind the palace for hours. Ron zipped her pack shut. "You got 12 minutes until Chun trips the net. After that, the Empire won't be able to see its own hands." "That's all we need," Elias said. "Your entry point?" Service ducts beneath the Hall of Ascendancy. Unshielded. No biometric locks. Imperial arrogance works in our favor. Elias nodded. "Remember, no collateral. The strike is surgical. When the lights come back, they'll see only the target gone and their Empire hollow." Ron's mouth quirked. "They'll see the hole before the body hits the floor." Back in the main corridors, Elias resumed the diplomat's pace, neither rushed nor idle. His route would take him through the Ascendancy's antechamber to the Regent's private audience hall. A Varithian protocol officer intercepted him near the colonnade. The alien's eyes, glossy black with a faint green ring, swept over Elias. "The High Regent will grant you 5 minutes, human." "That will suffice," Elias replied. His tone was courteous, but there was no hint of deference. As they walked, Elias noted the guard formations, the ceiling-mounted turrets disguised as ornamental light fixtures, the shimmer of shield projectors humming faintly at each entrance. All of it was recorded, filed away for operations already in motion. The antechamber opened ahead, a vaulted expanse lit by shafts of white light from skylights far above. In its center, a mosaic of the imperial crest spread across the marble floor. Standing on it, you were meant to feel small. Elias stepped onto it without pause. The protocol officer stopped at the threshold of the Regent's hall. "Proceed alone." Elias inclined his head slightly and entered. The High Regent Kael'thur sat upon his throne, the black silk threads of his ceremonial cloak pooling around him. His elongated fingers rested lightly on the arms of the seat, claws glinting under the light. "Commander Voss," he said, voice carrying that deliberate, resonant timbre the Verithians used when they wanted every syllable remembered. "You come so soon after the regrettable necessity." Elias stopped a measured distance from the dais. "I was present," he said. "I witnessed the entire proceeding." Kael'thur tilted his head, a predator's gesture of interest. "And yet you remain calm. Do humans feel nothing for their own?" "We feel," Elias said. "We act later." A low rumble of amusement came from the Regent, spoken like a strategist. "Tell me, do you intend to protest her guilt?" "No," Elias said simply. "I'm not here to change your mind about the past." That seemed to please the Regent. He leaned forward slightly. "Then you have come to, what? Accept the lesson?" Elias allowed the faintest suggestion of a smile. "To observe your confidence." Kael'thur's eyes narrowed in curiosity, but before he could reply, a subtle vibration touched the floor beneath Elias's boots. The signal. Somewhere deep under the city, Chen's team had cut the Empire's comm grid. Elias glanced at the ornate chronometer mounted on the wall behind the throne. The sweep hand ticked past the mark. 11 minutes until the strike. Far below, Ron's team slid through a narrow duct, silent as shadows. Ahead, the faint light of the service hatch bled into the darkness. One of her operatives produced a compact jammer, flicking it on. The nearby sensors went blind in an instant. They emerged into a crawl space beneath the throne dais. Ron checked her watch. 10 minutes. "Planting," she whispered. In the audience hall, Kael'thur was speaking about the frailty of Concord politics, but Elias's mind was counting heartbeats. His earbud clicked softly. Chen's voice came through, tight and precise. "Ned is blind. Defense AI in sleep mode. You're green." Elias looked up at the Regent, meeting his gaze directly. "Empires fall, Kael'thur, always slower than they rise, until the final hour." The Regent's mouth curved faintly. "And you think my hour comes soon?" Elias's tone didn't change. "I don't think. I plan." Somewhere beneath them, a magnetic clamp locked into place under the throne. 9 minutes. The Regent leaned back, clearly enjoying the verbal fencing. "Then plan carefully, human. Some games you do not survive." Elias inclined his head slightly, the gesture of a man leaving a conversation on his own terms. "We'll see." He turned to go, the sweep of his coat hiding the faint movement of his fingers as he keyed the final arming code into the discreet transmitter hidden in his cuff. 8 minutes. The quiet blade was in place. The High Regent's private reception chamber was a deliberate contrast to the cold grandeur outside, low lighting, curved walls lined with living vines from Verith Prime's deep jungles, the scent of resin and night-blooming flowers drifting through hidden vents. It was a room designed to make guests feel disarmed, as if danger could not find them here. Elias Voss walked in, as if it were nothing more than another day in the diplomatic calendar. The chamber's glass floor offered a clear view of the city far below, light sparkling like a scattered constellation. Across from him, Kael'thur stepped down from his dais with a predatory grace, his silken cloak whispering against the floor. "Commander," the Regent said, tone warm enough to fool the unwary, "it pleases me that you accepted my invitation so quickly." Elias didn't sit. The galaxy watches you, Regent. I wouldn't miss the chance to observe performance. Kael'thur's faint smile deepened. Some call it performance. Others call it leadership. Elias kept his gaze steady. And history calls it temporary. The regent gestured toward a low table set with crystal goblets and a carafe of shimmering blue liquid. Refreshment? It is not poisonous to humans. Elias stepped closer, his reflection ghosting across the glass floor, and poured his own drink. The movement was smooth, unhurried, but in that moment, the thin dermal patch on his palm brushed the carafe's rim, leaving behind a microscopic trace. He sipped. Interesting flavor. Distilled from the tears of a desert serpent, Kael'thur said, clearly savoring the exoticism. Rare. Costly. Most things that bleed are, Elias replied. The regent's eyes narrowed slightly. Then he laughed, a low ripple that did not reach the air vents. Security mics embedded their caught everything. Elias knew it. He chose his words with care. The Concord will see today's execution as a warning, Elias said. They will also measure your reaction to what follows. And what follows, human? That depends, Elias said, setting the goblet down with precise placement, on how quickly your enemies understand the truth about you. Kael'thur moved closer, studying him. And you believe you know that truth? I do, Elias said, and I'm counting the minutes until everyone else knows it too. Below the chamber, Ron's team moved through the palace's maintenance shafts, silent as smoke. One operative carried the EMP charge cradled in a padded case. Another swept a compact scanner in slow arcs, checking for security pulses. Clear. The scanner whispered over the comms. Ron tapped her mic twice, the signal for final positioning. They emerged behind a service panel, directly beneath the audience hall. The clamps they'd installed earlier were already live, the device's silent hum resonating faintly in the floor. In the reception chamber, Kael'thur took his seat, finally motioning for Elias to do the same. You are unlike most humans I've met, the regent said. They tend to fill silence with noise. You use it. Silence, Elias said, lowering himself onto the opposite seat, is when people show their hands. Kael'thur tilted his head, his gaze briefly sliding toward the security door, where two guards stood like statues. Do you intend to threaten me, Commander? If I intended to threaten you, Elias said evenly, you'd already know. For a fraction of a second, the regent's expression flattened. Then, just as quickly, the practiced smile returned. On the palace's west flank, Commander Chin monitored feeds from a stolen console inside the comms relay. The grid was already under her control. She could feel the system's pulse, its packets of data rerouted through human relays before they reached their intended nodes. Primary power loops vulnerable, her text said quietly. We can black the dome in 30 seconds. Not yet, Chin said. We cut it too early. They'll scatter the chain command. We wait for Voss's word. The regent rose again, restless now. You've seen the city, yes? It thrives because we control it. Fear keeps it alive. Without fear, chaos blooms. Elias's voice was calm, almost conversational. Fear works until it doesn't. Then it turns. Kael'thur paused. Turns. On you, Elias said. The moment your people realize the only thing they fear is the image of you, not your strength, not your reach, you lose them. The regent chuckled. A philosopher's answer. Humans do love their little moral victories. Elias glanced at the chronometer inset into the wall behind the throne. The hand had reached the 24-minute mark since the execution. Almost halfway, he leaned forward slightly. Your empire's power rests on visibility. That's its flaw. Remove the eyes, and the body doesn't know where to move. Kael'thur's claws flexed faintly on the table's edge. You speak as though you plan to remove them. Elias didn't blink. I speak as though it's already begun. Ron's voice came soft over the secure channel. Charge is placed. EMP radius covers the entire chamber and dais. Awaiting trigger. Chen's voice followed. We're synced. Once you light it, comms stay down for 20 minutes. After that, they'll be scrambling blind. Elias kept his hands resting casually on the table. I imagine the people in this city look at your palace and believe it cannot be breached, he said. Kael'thur's eyes gleamed. They believe because it is true. Belief, Elias said, is fragile. The regent stood again, perhaps to reassert dominance, but this time the movement was a fraction slower. Elias's dermal patch was working. The toxin was subtle, designed to induce microstagger in the muscles before full effect. You seem to be watching the time, Kael'thur said. I am, Elias said. Every second matters. Kael'thur laughed again, but the sound caught slightly in his throat. You amuse me, human. Elias let the moment stretch, then spoke softly, almost too low for the room's mics. 47 minutes, Regent. That's all it takes to unmake what you built. Chen's voice in his ear. We're green. Say the word. Elias didn't move his lips. Mark. In the underlevels, Ron's thumb pressed the detonator. The chamber lights blinked once, twice, then cut to black. The hum of the shields died instantly. The city beyond a glass floor vanished into darkness. Gasps from the guards, a hissed curse from the regent. Emergency lights failed to engage. The EMP had fried the backups too. Elias's voice cut through the darkness, calm and unhurried. Your palace has no walls now. Somewhere in the dark, Kael'thur's breath quickened. Elias rose, the faint glow from the toxin patch on his hand hidden from sight. He could hear the faint scrape of the regent's claws against the table, unsteady now. Sit, Regent, Elias said. The galaxy's still watching, but they're not seeing you anymore. The silence that followed was the first true crack in the Empire's facade. The room was black, not dimmed, erased. The air carried the faint tang of burned circuits, the aftermath of the EMP's silent detonation. Somewhere in the dark, a guard's armor shifted, the faint scrape against the floor betraying tension. Elias Voss stood still, letting the silence settle like dust. The High Regent's breathing was uneven now, a faint rasp threading through each inhale. The toxin's early stages were working exactly as designed. No pain yet, only the creeping realization that something was wrong. Chen's voice came through his earpiece, calm but urgent. Grids blind. Defense AI still sleeping. Civilian channels are dead. You got 18 minutes before they start throwing analog backups online. Copy, Elias murmured. Kael'thur's voice cut through the dark, still resonant but stripped of its public grandeur. What have you done? Elias stepped closer to the sound, measured in both pace and tone. I've taken the eyes from your empire. You can still shout, but no one can hear you. A guard's plasma spear snapped to life, bathing a narrow strip of the chamber in cold blue light. In its glow, the regent's silhouette swayed slightly, one claw gripping the edge of the table for balance. Drop it. Kael'thur hissed at the guard, masking his instability with authority. He's bluffing. Elias tilted his head toward the guard. You think your comm is still working? Call for orders. See who answers. The guard hesitated, tapped at his wrist console, and froze. The tiny screen stayed blank. Your command net, Elias said quietly, is deaf. Below, Ron's team moved like shadows to the palace underlevels, their boots silent on metal grating. The EMP charge had done its work. Every automated turret, every security drone, every sensor in this sector was blind. Secondary explosives set. One operative whispered, Exfil route clear. Ron checked her watch. 16 minutes. We stay until confirmation. In the reception chamber, Kael'thur tried to straighten. The toxin resisted him. His movements were just off enough to be noticeable to someone watching closely. You believe this will end me? The regent asked. Elias met his gaze. It already has. We're just waiting for the moment everyone else notices. The regent's lips pulled back in something between a snarl and a smile. Humans, always so certain they've outplayed the board. Elias allowed himself a fractional smile. We don't need the board, just the king. Chen's voice again. Outer Fleet Command is offline. Civilian broadcast networks are under our control. If you want to speak, you've got an open channel. Elias's mind was already on the next sequence. Hold it until the mark. Keep them blind. Understood. The guard shifted again, uneasy in the silence. Without orders, his training faltered. Kael'thor noticed, his voice sharpening despite the toxin's drag. Stand firm. I am the Empire. Elias took a single step forward, into the pale wash of the spear's glow. His expression was calm, but his eyes were fixed on the regent. You were the Empire, he said. 47 minutes ago. Kael'thor's jaw tightened. What happens when those minutes are up? Elias's voice didn't change. The galaxy sees what's left of you. On the palace's lower concourse, civilians were gathering, confused by the sudden blackout. Without broadcasts or directives, the usual air of controlled order fractured. Small knots of people whispered each other, scanning the sky for the massive holodisplays that usually pulsed with imperial announcements. They were dark. Far above, in the reception chamber, Elias could feel the weight of that silence pressing in. The absence of the Empire's voice was louder than any speech. Chen's update came. 13 minutes. Resistance teams in 3 sectors have begun mobilizing. Your move will be their signal. Elias's gaze stayed locked on the regent. Do you know what's worse than fear, Kael'thor? Emptiness. When the people you rule by fear suddenly feel nothing. The regent's claws scraped the table, the faint sound betraying a tremor. You think they will rise for you? They won't rise for me, Elias said. They'll rise because you've fallen. Ron's voice. We got movement in the eastern wing. Guard patrols trying to re-establish contact. They're scattered, confused. No central command. Maintain shadow, Elias ordered. We move at 8 minutes. The regent's shoulders rose and fell, a slow, deliberate effort. If you kill me, human, they will come for your species with fire. Elias didn't blink. If I let you live, they'll still come. The difference is they'll be coming without a leader. Kael'thor's eyes, still sharp despite the toxin's crawl, studied him. You mean to do it here, in my own hall? This is where everyone saw you kill one of mine, Elias said. It's only fitting they see you in the same way. Chin again. 10 minutes. Broadcasting window open. Say the word. Elias spoke into the dark, not at Chin this time, but at every human operative linked into the net. Prepare for cascade. A double-click acknowledgement came from Ron. Kael'thor's breath hitched. The toxin had reached a point where each movement was deliberate, forced. His voice had lost its polish. You think this changes the galaxy? It changes the story they tell about it. Elias said. The regent's eyes narrowed. You play with symbols. Elias's answer was quiet. Symbols topple empires faster than armies. 8 minutes. Elias stepped closer to the throne, close enough now that the faint blue from the spear painted half his face. He looked down at the regent, not with triumph, not with rage, but with the measured certainty of a man closing a book he'd already read. 47 minutes ago, Elias said, you showed the galaxy a death you thought would make them fear you. In a few minutes they'll see yours, and understand they don't have to. The regent's mouth opened, but whatever reply he intended was lost in a shudder that ran through his frame. Elias touched the inside of his wrist, a signal. Below, Ron's team moved. The secondary explosives were armed not to kill, but to sever the palace's last analog links to the fleet. Chen's voice. Final lockout in place. They're cut off from everything. 5 minutes. The guard spear sputtered and went dark. Its power cell finally drained. Total blackness returned. In it, Elias's voice was the only thing alive. This is your empire now, Kael'thor. Quiet, blind, waiting for someone else to speak. No answer came. 3 minutes. Chun, we're ready to push the broadcast live. Elias, Mark. Screens across the city flared to life. Not the imperial crest, but the regent himself, slumped in his seat, eyes dull, Elias standing beside him. No words at first, just the image. Then Elias's voice, carried to every corner of the Verithian Empire. 47 minutes ago, you watch a human die to feed your fear. Now, you see the end of the one who ordered it. The Empire is leaderless. The choice is yours. The feed cut. 2 minutes. Ron's charges detonated, severing the palace's last power relays. The skyline beyond the glass floor went dark again, not from interference, but from the collapse of control. 1 minute. Elias turned from the throne without looking back. Time was up. The imperial capital was burning, not metaphorically. Sheets of flame lit the night sky, their glow reflecting the polished, terrified eyes of the Senate guards. From the outer districts, the sound of distant detonations rolled through the marble corridors like angry thunder. The Emperor sat slumped at his throne, the gilded metal cold against his back. His breathing was uneven. The opulent hall around him felt suddenly too vast, too exposed. A general burst through the high bronze doors, his ornate armor scorched in places. "Your Majesty, communications are gone. Every fleet relay, every long-range array, silent. The colonies are panicking. Some have declared independence already." The Emperor's jaw tightened. "You're telling me the human threat was real?" "It's worse," the general said grimly. "It's coordinated and fast. No one moves as fast unless they've been waiting." He remembered the broadcast, the human girl's last words, her defiance. Her face had been calm, even as the executioner's blade hung above her neck. "You'll regret this." A simple sentence. Not shouted, not screamed, just spoken. Now, 47 minutes later, his empire was crumbling. In the subterranean data nexus of the palace, alarm screamed. A young technician scrambled to patch into the failing grid, sweat dripping onto his console. "It's not just sabotage. They're rewriting our own control codes against us." "By who?" his superior shouted. A pause. The tech's voice trembled. "Humans. It's human code." That word was no longer a small species from a backwater world. It was a knife in the collective throat of the Galactic Empire. On the streets, panic surged. The civilians didn't understand the scale. Only that the palace guard had pulled back, that shops were abandoned, and that the sky was full of dark silhouettes moving unervingly fast. In one narrow side street, a cloaked figure moved against the tide of fleeing citizens. Under the hood, Admiral Sora's eyes were fixed, unblinking, calculating. He had been the one to recommend making an example of the human girl. He had called her execution necessary. Now he knew what it really was. An invitation, a challenge, and humanity had answered with terrifying precision. In the command spire, the Emperor finally spoke, his voice like dry stone breaking. "Summon the High Council. If we are to survive..." A blast shook the chamber. The far wall fractured. In the gap stood a shape, slender, upright, framed by the embers outside. A human, not a soldier in heavy armor, not a raging berserker from propaganda vids. This one wore only a matte black infiltration suit, the kind that blended with shadow. He didn't raise a weapon. Instead, he tossed something onto the polished floor, a small device no bigger than a coin. It hummed. Every light in the throne room flickered, died, then returned at half strength. The Emperor's personal guards collapsed where they stood, unconscious. The human stepped closer. His voice was steady, almost conversational. Her name was Liana Vance. She was 19. You killed her live for the galaxy to see. The Emperor's mouth worked, but no words came. You thought it would frighten us. The human continued, each step an unbroken march forward. Instead, it gave us a timer. 47 minutes. That's all we needed. In orbit, the Empire's flagship, a dreadnought of impossible scale, was no longer under Imperial control. It turned its main guns, not toward the human fleets, but toward the palace itself. A bridge officer's scream was cut short as a human voice came through the comm, "Target lock acquired. Any evacuation is pointless." The crew froze. This wasn't war as they knew it. This was precision annihilation. The Emperor found his voice at last. You can't destroy an empire in 47 minutes. The human tilted his head. "We already did. You just haven't realized it yet." He turned away, as if the Emperor was no longer the focus. "Your fleets? Gone. Your colonies? Gone. Your currency? Worthless. Your name? Already erased from half the archive networks." The Emperor's grip tightened on the armrests. "Why?" It was not a demand, but the broken question of a man seeing the end. The human looked over his shoulder. Because you made the mistake of thinking fear would keep us quiet. The first shot from orbit landed. The palace walls ruptured. Air screamed through the widening cracks. The human walked out through the smoke and fire, never once looking back. From the burning upper levels, Admiral Sorov watched the black-suited figure vanish into the chaos below. His comm pinged. A secure channel, unfamiliar encryption. He answered. A woman's voice spoke, calm and low. 47 minutes was a message, but the war started the moment you raised that blade over her. Sorov swallowed. Who are you? Her sister. The channel went dead.